What's up, everybody? Dante Pittman here, and welcome to episode 17 of the Power Ranger podcast. I am your host, Dante Pittman, as always, and over to my right, from the Disney brain, JWR.
Greetings, willkommen, and bienvenue to another episode of our podcast. I can't believe you've actually been listening to us and putting up with us for this long, but we're glad you're still here.
Yes, and also we have our co-host. Other co-host is back in the bottom, Dragon Raider X9.
Glad to be back. Sorry for the absence.
That's all right. Oh Lord. Now we have some topics here to discuss here. Dragon Raider wants to share his thoughts on the Jenny Klein news because we've covered that topic. Yes, on last week's episode, of course.
To be
And
honest, I'm sorry. Would you like to continue first?
yes, and
My bad.
next we'll discuss um, this possible title reveal for season 30 of Power Rangers.
Or,
Uh,
or maybe or not. We don't know because
yeah,
that's kind of been a running theme. That's if we could describe the Hasbro era so far in just like one simple phrase. I think we wouldn't. I think we don't know. I think we I think we would know would be a good way to sum up this era of Power Rangers so far. But we'll get more on that later.
yes, indeed. All right, yes. And also, we'll finally discuss the samurai's journey from Ninja Storm. After putting it off for so long. Mm, mm.
That's my bad. Sorry, guys.
No, no,
It's
it
okay.
happens. Actually,
Well,
No, you're all right.
I'd say it's my bad. I'd say it's kind of my bad as well because I've had things just I've been it's not important. We put it off for a while, but we're finally going to get to it now.
what is
Y-
important for our audience is that it's going to be well worth the wait.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Yes. All right, so Dragon Raider. So, what are your thoughts on the Jenny Klein news? First off.
First off, I guess we should just pull it up. Let's just pull it up.
Yeah, because I'm going to
Yeah,
level
pull it
with
up.
you. I don't have nearly as many thoughts as you might expect because I've only recently heard of Jenny Klein as a person.
Okay.
I'm sure she's wonderful. I hear she's done other work, which I'm sure is quite good. But as to what it could mean for her to be running Power Rangers, I don't really have any insight.
Oh wow, I'm shocked.
But
I
if
don't.
nothing else, having fresh blood around to invigorate things, it's
Yeah.
always a gamble. But I'm optimistic.
And
Sure. We discussed we kind of touched upon this last week, but I think something of note in the article, or at least something of note when I guess Jonathan Entwistle like confirmed the news, is that this is basically going to be that it sounds like they're going to like set whatever this is. It's going to be set in its own universe, distinct from the mainline TV show, and that this show that Miss Klein is working on is either going to proceed or follow the movie
see,
that Entwistle is working on.
Huh. Okay, that is quite a bit more interesting. Now, I'll fully disclose that does make it somewhat less interesting to me personally, but it could still turn out to be really good. Now, use the
I
movie.
mean, they did say that's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Now, when you say the movie, you don't mean the 2017 one, do you?
No, no, no,
um,
no. As in the movie that Jonathan Entwistle is working on, the like
Uh,
hardline reboot that he's going to be working on.
hmm. So if this is how they go, they'll not only have a movie that's off on its own, which Power Rangers has done before, but it'll also have a TV series relegated specifically to that movie and its continuity.
Yes,
That I mean,
Yes.
again, while I'm not personally the biggest fan of that,
Yep.
I do see the potential. There is definitely room to the toy around with things and not necessarily be confined by the general conventions of Power Rangers, if that's the way they want to go.
Yes. Yes. Although while that generally does excite me, or at least intrigue me, though I'm wondering how I should phrase this. My, I guess, worry, my main worry, if you could even call it that, I guess, revolves around what exactly what exactly they're going to be trying to aim, what exactly they're gunning for or aiming for with this show, or like this what they describe as like a I I'm not paraphrasing, but from what it sounds like, this darker and, I guess, more mature and more serious than what than the children's show.
Oh
And
boy.
um okay, no, okay, again, not I'm not paraphrasing, that's not a direct quote, but that's what it sounds like. And that worries me for reasons that are, for obvious reasons and for other reasons.
Hmm.
The obvious being that I am concerned that they're going to that it's going to that it's basically going to try too hard, if that makes any sense. Like that they're going to go that they might go out of their way to be dark and grim and moody and joyless.
Oh,
Now,
believe me, I am familiar with the concept of of trying to appeal to older demographics, especially teenagers, by being superficially more mature and not necessarily actually more
yeah,
mature.
right. Now, at first glance, there is okay. I know people might look at might it's easy to look at like the things that the resume of Jenny Klein, and automatically have your head go to the idea like, it's easy to assume that based on Jenny Klein's resume that that's the direction they're going to go in. Oh, wait, like, for those of you that missed last week, she has worked on shows like Supernatural, Jessica Jones, The Witcher. So there is some credence to that theory, although I say not really, because what somebody has worked on in the past is not always indicative of what they might do, of what they will do when they're hired to work on like an established property or IP. Like, take James Gunn, for example. Would any like if like at first glance you think, wait, the guy who wrote Dawn of the Dead and Slither and Super, he's all super crude, vulgar, unfamily friendly movies, is going to be directing a family friendly Marvel movie.
Mm.
Although to be fair, though, there are a decent amount of dirty jokes in the Guardians movies. But I digress. I've gone on for too long.
I get your point. Sometimes you can never tell. Sometimes creators just want to try something different. Other times they're a bad fit for what you're trying to ask them. You never. I'm not going to name any
Right.
directors here because we don't need that. But I don't want to go in with too many preconceived notions of what she's going to make. I want her to be
Right.
able to, you know, do what she wants to do. But I will say this, and
Right.
I think it might be optimistic.
Mm.
Um, I didn't see any of the Netflix Marvel shows like Jessica Jones, but can I assume that there were probably a fair number of fight scenes in that show?
Yes, there were, and it's yes, there were decent amount, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because some of the shows that Jenny Klein worked on, like Jessica Jones and Cloak and Dagger, happen to like the happened to I don't know if you call this ironic, but those two shows happen to feature former Power Rangers actors, and now their
Nice.
boss is going to be working on the franchise that they worked on before that.
It's a small world.
Hmm.
But what I was just trying to get at is that if she if she has some experience working with choreographed fight scenes and how they can be, I guess, presented or used to tell stories, and maybe that'll play into this somehow. I'd like it to.
Most likely, well, it's hard to say at this stage because
Mm-hmm.
it's hard, it's so hard to say at this stage because there's still so much mystery surrounding this project. Like, I feel like we'll have a better idea of what they're going for as the project becomes more tangible. So like as we hear about more writers that are being brought on board, uh actors that are being cast, stuff like that.
All right.
There was Wait, before we move on, there was something else that Jonathan Entwistle, I guess, mentioned in one of his tweets when he said that we would be seeing familiar faces.
Hmm. That could mean any number of things. But but my immediate thought with all the information we've gotten thus far is
Okay.
that okay, and I wish I had a better example to use, but like when Star Trek Into Darkness brought up their own version of Khan.
Yeah, probably like that. It could something like that, or um, like they might bring in actors who have been on the show, but they're going to be playing different characters, like Gemma Chan, who played one of the bad guys in Captain Marvel. They brought her back to play Cersei in Eternals.
Huh. Mind you, now I'm just thinking that I want them to have their own version of Diva Talks that they make me fall in love with.
Oh, that would be. Oh, wouldn't that be neat?
I've always been a proponent of the idea that redoing concepts, remakes, reboots, or whatever should be used as opportunities to either do new stuff and also maybe take old ideas that didn't entirely work out and give them another shot. Give them their time to
Right,
shine.
right. There's a joke that I so desperately want to make, but it would be beating a dead horse. So I'll try to refrain from I'll try to I'll do myself to refrain.
Yes, please. So we
But
don't
knowing
want.
but no yeah, but knowing me, you probably already figured out what it was.
Uh,
All right. So,
Okay. Let
Dante,
me pull.
what's our next topic?
all right, all right. Since you've already shared your thoughts on the Jenny Klein news, all right. I guess we can talk about this possible title reveal for season 30, and its possible title is called Power Rangers Cosmic Fury.
So, the first question that I think needs to be addressed before we get into this title itself is when we say possible, where's this information coming from?
This information actually came from the Power Scoop, which is more or less not a, which has more or less been like the like the main hub for Power Rangers news.
Mm-hmm.
Now let me see if I can pull it. Okay, um, so all right, so Power Blog. I'm at the website now. You know what? I'm just gonna have to share my screen for a second.
Yes, go ahead. Allow you to share.
Okay. 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 Power scoop. Well, yada yada yada. As we move into the summer and fall, it is and wait for news on the second half of Dino Fury. Blah blah blah. Netflix fans are getting anxious to see what the upcoming season. Blah 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 blah. Okay, here we go. Okay, all right. So, I'm not going to go over this whole thing since
Right.
a lot of it's just reiterating what we heard previously. Here it is. Cosmic. Here it is. I think here it is, courtesy of Mega Power Brazil. We're in the working title. We're in the working title of whatever of what we think is season 30 is going to be Power Rangers Cosmic Fury. Now it should be noted that they that we still do. I don't want to get ahead of myself. All we know is that we have a a title for a title for what we think is the 30th season, Cosmic Fury. Whether this will be the official name for the season is still up in the air. The names for Power Ranger seasons can be changed at any point during production for any reason. For example, executive producer and showrunner Simon Bennett explained that Dino Fury was originally had a different name, Power Rangers Dino Knights. While some fans guessed that that might be the name of the season, or simply just wanted it to be the name if they were to adapt Kishiryu Sentai Ryu Soldier, they weren't aware of how close they had come to being correct. Um, so here, somebody on Twitter asked showrunner Simon Bennett if he knew whether or not Dino Fury was going to be the name of that season in the first drafts. Is it? And basically, Simon Bennett basically answered him by saying that it was a that Dino Knights was the working title, but Hasbro has final say over all the names, and it was changed to Dino Fury. So that's a little tidbit.
Mm-hmm.
Bennett, who took over the. Oh, I'm almost done. So Bennett, who took over the show, who took over the role of showrunner of Power Rangers from Judd Lin, went on to further explain that he knew Ryu Soldier would be used to create Dino Fury around April of 2019 when he took on the job. Though fans and though fans didn't come to find out the changing staff until between November 2019 and January of 2020. Power Rangers Dino 3 was the first season that it produced, blah, blah, blah. In another bit of news today, Alpha Action Stunts, the team behind the second unit Ranger suits, gave us a brief glimpse at what's in store for the 30th season in the form of the Morph. Alpha Action Stunts took to their social media accounts and shared tidbits of the morphing sequence for the next season. The tweet and
Ooh.
Instagram stories have since been deleted, but
Wow.
fans were quick and snagged screenshots of what we could expect. Just starting on a morphing sequence, and there you can kind of see the storyboards for the morphing sequence there.
Can I just say that
The,
I'd honestly love to see more storyboards from previous seasons and what
I would too.
stuff looked like before they had it planned out? I think that'd be neat.
It would be like especially for like some of the original fights, the fights done with original footage, not using any
Hmm.
Sentai footage, but yeah.
I'd like to see
Anyways,
the storyboarding for when Mesagog tied Tommy up to the table.
oh,
I'm sure those had to be fun.
oh, they must have been. Um, anyways, they also revealed that in a month and a half, in a month and a half, filming for the 30th Power Rangers season will kick off to some capacity as production began months ago, arguably around March or April. The Power Rangers productions team started working on this season on Monday, June 20th.
Hmm.
Mega Power Brazil also got a little bit on what was written on those sheets. In possession of Ryu, Dragon, they transform. You can read the full translated quote below.
So is that all the relevant information, or
That's all the relevant information that we have for now. Yes.
okay? So Cosmic Fury. I think like if we were gonna make predictions,
Oh no, that's exactly what we're going to do.
because like it's either we have no idea what they're gonna do, or maybe it'll kind of look like stuff and we can guess. And I think based off the name Cosmic, to me that implies a space season,
Oh
which
yeah.
which means that it's going to be adapted almost certainly from the Sentai Q Ranger.
Well,
I don't know the full name offhand.
I think it's Uchu Sentai Q Ranger, and that is certainly one of the conclusions that I've kind of come to. But we'll get more on that later.
Here's
Oh,
everything I
you
know
know,
about
we
Q
can get on that
Ranger.
now.
Oh, sorry. Basically, all I know about Q Ranger, there's 12 Rangers eventually. People complain that not enough of them get any sort of focus, and supposedly the Red Ranger is really annoying. I don't know how accurate any of this is, though I'm pretty sure I saw him riding a meteor once, and that was
Mm,
kind of cool.
yes. Yeah. So there's okay. The title with that working title. I think it's safe to say that this is going to be a space a space a space set or like a space themed season. Now, I there are if this isn't something completely original, there's and it's a Sentai adaptation. I'm there are two possible if this is an adaptation for Sentai, there are two op there's two options that I think are the most likely.
Okay.
One of them is Q Ranger. The other one is Kira Major.
Hmm.
Cure Major.
I've actually seen some Akira Major.
Yeah, it's fun.
A friend of
I
mine
have
was in the
now.
middle of watching it, and we kind of fell out for whatever reason. But we need to get back to it. It was good.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
I've not seen it.
Oh, you should. It's like of all the I want to say the no, I'll say of all like the post Go Kaiger seasons. I know it's overused. Everybody always goes to Go Kaiger as the best, but like it. That's just my metric. It's obvious, but but more times than not, the obvious answer is the correct one. That's not to say that
Hey, I
like
love Gokaiger.
yeah, Go Kaiser's great, but like of all the post Go Kaiser seasons, I would say that one is still my favorite. Though Don Brothers is certainly giving it a run for its money.
I haven't seen too many, but I did like
Yeah.
Go Busters.
Yeah. Um. So
Well, I'll save that for another time.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we get, I think we should maybe we should maybe elaborate on this a little bit a little bit
Okay.
Go
in
ahead.
that now so far from of what all we have to go off of is this one casting call for film that's filming for like 5 to 6 weeks, not which is a lot shorter than what it used than how long it usually takes to film a season of Power Rangers. So that gives us some reason to believe this will be like a shorter season. Although
Hmm.
again, this is the only casting call we've gotten, so it's possible that they're still going to be filming afterwards, or that this is just casting for one part or one character. We don't know. So for now, let's just, I guess, assume that this is going to be a full length season, and and depending on whatever additional information we get down the line, we can adjust. Don't worry about that. Anyway, we can adjust our expectations accordingly. Just something that I wanted to get at. So just something that I felt was worth bringing up.
Right. Fair enough.
Now,
But yeah, for the moment, we should probably assume that this is just going to be a normal Link season.
right now for my next the next what I meant when I said like we should be like elaborate on this. There's two. I think I think we can all agree that that if this is an adaptation of Sentai, the most likely options are either Kira Major or Q Ranger, right? Yay, nay?
Yeah, I'd settle with that. I mean, they can
Yeah.
still surprise us. You never know. But
They absolutely
Hey.
can. And
Right now, 24.
yeah, no, they absolutely can. Like it could be one. It could hell. It could be one. It could be a Sentai that we skipped over previously. Now now those two again. Those two are the most likely because of the whole space theme. But it's worth mentioning that this is that Power Rangers has not always strictly adhered to the themes and aesthetics of its Sentai counterparts.
that's true.
like like the video the oh wait that's the garage the video game or computer based Mega Ranger got adapted became in space. The nature themed Gengaman became Lost Galaxy, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So it is very possible that hell we could find out that they're adapting like Tokyuger or Zyuger, and they're just remodeling it to be a space themed season.
Now, I'm not exactly like there is historical precedent, but at the moment, I'm not exactly expecting that simply because
I'm
those tend to involve a lot more effort and money.
Yeah, I'm not
Remember,
expecting those either.
remember, Mega Ranger becoming Power Rangers in space, as I understand it, started because of a misconception on the producer's part. They thought it was going to be a space season.
Yes, in part because in part because of like the whole because Mega Ranger had spaceships had spaceships and I guess the
Like their first giant robot has a space shuttle for a head.
yeah.
Lost Galaxy became a space themed season because it happened immediately after Power Rangers in space, and that one brought the viewers back in droves. You know, strike
Yeah,
the
and
iron while it's working for you.
yeah, like they saw, we brought the show into space. It were the space themed like the in space was a huge success. Space is basically like they saw, hey, this show can do really well if we do another space if we maybe we can replicate the success we had within space by doing another space themed season.
And well, okay, the only other the season that majorly deviated from its source counterpart is Power Rangers RPM,
Yep.
and like there was nothing typical about that production. I think that's fair to say.
Oh no, at all. Like in terms of what they did, in terms of how they reworked the Sentai and the environment when they were making it, nothing at all typical about
It
it.
took a special combination of executive disinterest, a writer trying his best to live up to certain promises he'd made, and a really, really fascinating creative process from
Yes.
the creator.
Right. Like honestly, it's easy to like look at the popularity of RPM and just assume that all of that each decision that went into like the tone and the writing was like all calculated and everything went smoothly. Not the case. Or look at Lost Galaxy. Popular season, did well
Production
in the
was
rating.
a nightmare, as I understand it.
It was. Yeah. And I suspect that well, we talked about that, but like the process that went into making Lost Galaxy was like so catastrophic that it basically that it basically scared Zakharov away from from like majorly deviating from the Sentai ever again after that.
And you know, actually, I want to talk about that for just a moment now that you've brought
Yes.
it up. Jonathan Zacher, he gets a certain amount of flack from Power Rangers fans, and that was true before Megaforce happened. He has a tendency, from what I've understood, to like to stick really closely to the Sentai, sometimes
Yes.
to the detriment of the product.
Yes.
And maybe in this context, we should be a little lighter on him.
Yeah.
Because if he did survive Lost Galaxy, if it was that much of a nightmare, and we don't really know what it's like producing Power Rangers as your job.
Oh yeah, no, it's taxing. I think taxing on this on the stunt people and the actors. Like I was reading about it, and like I think Alison McGinnis, the actress who plays the Pink Lightspeed Raider Dana Mitchell. I think I was reading a story about how like she shattered her leg like during one of the stunts. So
I
yeah,
think I remember something like that.
yeah.
But yeah, if there's one thing I can convince any of our listeners to do, go easy on Zacher. It's been a long time since Megaforce. It doesn't matter anymore.
It doesn't.
He's just a guy. Let him be.
Right.
All right. I should get my thoughts in.
Oh, hold on,
Mhm.
wait a minute. I just realized we went wildly off tangent
Oh
back to the
yeah,
whole Cosmic
Cosmic
Fury
Fury.
thing. Okay,
Cosmic Fury, guys. Come
okay,
on.
okay. So I was so if it's a Sensei, it's either going to be Q Ranger, Kira Ranger, and I wanted to maybe hash out reasons why it could be one, and why it might not be, and vice versa, why it could be the other, and why they might not want to do that.
Okay.
So hmm. So right off the bat, I think we should mention that Simon Bennett has been I not well not just Simon Bennett among other people involved with the production of Power Rangers had been very vocal about why they've been hesitant towards adapting Q Ranger because that's because that's a lot of Rangers, so like a lot of like like they start off with 9 right off the bat, and then they later add 3 more. So like
On a practical level, like on a production level, even before you get to the story writing, that's a lot of paychecks. And a
yes,
space themed season is generally going to involve a lot of, well, space effects that cost money.
yes, wait. So not 9 act. That's all right off the bat. That's 9 actors you have to pay. No, wait, 9 actors you have to pay. 9 at least 9 stunt doubles, like like Um, plus, wait, just to say nothing of the money you're going to spend on the special effects and the stunts, and maybe additional money that you're going to have to spend refurbishing some of the suits that are refurbishing some of the suits that might need to be fixed, and that so that right off the bat kind of it kind of has that going against it right off the bat, but it's hmm, it's possible that they would be willing to go all out since this is coinciding with the 30th anniversary of the franchise, and like in that storyboard they mentioned something about Ryu, which is which means roughly translates to dragon in Japanese. God, I cannot talk today. And if I recall correctly, let me pull it up. I believe there is a dragon theme. There is a dragon themed, or like I want to say there's like a dragon themed ranger on the show. Okay, yeah, right. Okay, Shu Ranpo, who is basically like the purple the violet Q Ranger. He's actually like a dragon like um he's sorry, I got something caught in my throat. Ryu Violet, Ryu Violet, basic. So the Violet Q Ranger is a dragon like alien. So and like so there that does lead the barest, and I do mean like the barest of credence to the possibility that it could be a Q Ranger adaptation. That and the fact that the name Cosmic implies that we're going to be that they're going to be either exploring other regions of the galaxy or like touching upon or like incorporating elements of like outer space. So there's that. Did you have any thoughts on that?
No, that's more or less what I would have said. And I don't
Um,
even know very much about. I mean, more than I would have said. I've never seen Q Ranger.
I guess
David,
I, I guess I could get my thoughts on this one. All right, so I've been tip. So Dragon Raider, yesterday you were thinking that Cosmic Fury would be a sequel to Quantum Leap.
Oh, dude, that was a joke.
I know it's a joke, but imagine if
Look,
it.
look, I don't know
Imagine.
anything about Quantum Leap other than the title and like they spend every episode in the new time period. That's all I got.
Uh,
yeah, I don't.
but
Yeah, no, that no, that wouldn't have. No,
I mean,
yeah.
that would certainly be a choice, but
It would like they took a to take a space themed Sentai and turned it into a time travel Sentai or like an
hey,
or like a multiverse hopping Sentai.
so also I've been hearing about Cosmic Fury be might be a prequel to SPD.
I don't know if that really lines up. I'm not entirely sure how
like,
that
oh, okay,
lines
okay.
up.
The thing everyone's inevitably going to bring up is that Power Rangers SPD was a show that came out in 2005, I believe, but
Yes,
it was set in the future,
yes,
specifically the year 2025, and they
yes,
had future tech and they had aliens living on Earth and all that stuff. And
yeah,
I think it's important for everyone to recognize that when we actually get to 2025 in the real world, they are not going to make a Power Ranger season that's just aliens on Earth from now on. I
oh
don't
yeah,
see that
no,
happening.
no.
And
Well,
okay, and
right.
for context for anyone listening, most Power Ranger seasons are implied to take place in the year they air, unless otherwise stated.
Yes. I've always just kind of just in my head like internalized that SPD is like set in like a not like in a not like another dimension or universe or whatnot. That's how I've just kind of tried to rationalize it.
That's gonna hurt ladies.
Honestly, I never even went that far. I just accepted Power Rangers SPD is the future.
Yes.
Sometime in the future. When in the future? Sometime
Yeah.
in the
Exactly.
future. I don't need to think about it past that. I'm fine. There's
Yeah.
enough future to well, there's enough future at any given time that we can just let that be a thing.
Yeah.
So imagine if they do Kyu Ranger having Furge teaming up with Deca Ranger and
I
Captain
do-
Chip.
did they do did I mean it's not one of those things that's nice to think about, but it's probably never but probably not going to happen since I don't believe that since I'm pretty sure that Q Ranger never had a crossover with Deca Ranger, and a lot of the actors from Deca Ranger would be a lot of the cast from SPD would be pretty, I imagine, pretty difficult to get back to get back together for a full season. So we're just gonna nice to think about, but not going to spend too much time on that. Now,
Mm,
Yeah. Okay.
now, now, um, uh, I guess back to here's what hmm. Now on the flip side, we could look at Kira Major, which now it's less space. It's not strictly set in space like Q Ranger, but it's worth mentioning that the stones were from space. So so while they're probably not it's probably not going to be like a while we're probably not going to see them like venture from galaxy to galaxy looking for the stones or stuff like that, I I think I think the stones being okay, the stones being set in space, I think is all that is enough would be enough justification to justification
Yeah,
for the title, even if it's pretty bare. Although,
there is a logic to it. You know,
yes,
powers from space, powers of the universe that we use to battle evil, all that stuff. They
yeah,
can make it work.
yeah, they can. Also, now I know a lot of people kind of check out of the either. I know not everybody here reads the comics, and a lot of people that did kind of tuned out after the whole battle, Beyond the Grid arc. But one thing that they brought up in it was that there was this pocket or void dimension full of Zeo crystals. So, and that could like I've heard people talk about how if they were going to adapt Kira Major, they could, and it's they could tie it back to they could tie it in with the previous with the history of the franchise by bringing back the Zeo crystals. And in the comics, there's like this pocket dimension full of Zeo crystals. So if you wanted to, you could very easily incorporate the comics into the show, and that's how you introduce like the Cure Major powers.
That does feel, if I'm honest, that does feel a little overcomplicated for what doesn't really need to be. But they
It
could go that route, yeah.
I would have said you I see your point. Although I will raise you this, they brought I did. I mean, would you before Dino Fury? Would you have ever would you have believed that they were going that the TV show was going to incorporate the Morphin Masters in the comics?
To be fair, before Dino Fury, I didn't know there were Morphin Masters.
A lot of people and a lot and it's right, right. Like a lot of people didn't know that, but like they did it in such a way that like if you know about them, if you had no if you had never if you never read the comics, this is they didn't in such a way where it didn't feel where it where it didn't make you feel like they were it didn't feel like the show was making you do homework and check out all this
Yeah.
additional like all
And,
this addition.
and come to think of it, we never did get a concrete answer as to where the Zeo crystal came from, did
We
we?
did not. So in the same way that they could just in the same way that they could subtle that they could bring in that they brought in the Morphin Masters from the comics in a way that made sense of the show without I guess with they incorporated the Morphin Masters from the comics. It's very possible that they could incorporate the whole Zeo dimension thing to like both introduce the Cure Major
That's good.
powers and like maybe even explain where the Zeo crystals came from or
Not to
whatnot.
mention the Super Zeo gems, which just kind of show up one episode.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, I don't think that's a plot thread that needs to be solved decades later, but if they wanna, why not?
right, right. Hmm. Right.
The idea about cosmic fury that I've seen floating around,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it suggested that it might be a full-on sequel season to Dino Fury, the way
Yes.
they used to do back in the day,
Yes.
and that the main villain might be the now revived Lord Zed, since he
I'm
is still hanging around.
right. I mean, if there's any if there was any season in which they would want him, I mean, if he has to be this if given that it's the 30th anniversary, if there is any season in which using Lord Zed would not only not feel like contrived and lazy, but would actually feel natural and fitting, it would be this one.
Yeah.
Now,
Now, I don't actually know how I feel about the idea of Zed being the main villain again. Like, I
yeah,
get that basically it's just that for the biggest villain in Power Rangers history, he never really had a proper defeat, a big final battle, if you will.
yeah,
And that would be fun to see. But also, this is a Lord Zed that's removed from all of his previous context and, minions and Rita.
Right.
And what do you even do with Lord Zed as a villain without all that?
Right. There's an interesting avenue to explore there. So now there like I guess a more aggressive and less what's the word a more aggressive, and I want to say less hmm,
Goofy?
what's the no, not goofy, but like less okay, yeah, no, less, yeah, less goofy version of Zed, one that's like not like one where he could potentially be allowed to be as I guess as intimidating as he was when they introduced him in season 2 and before parents complained about how frightening he was.
Dang, but that was a good introduction, though.
It was that, yes, it was. So that. Actually, wait. Oh no! I just thought of something else. The main villains of Kira Major are robots, like the one like in Zeo and O Ranger.
Hmm.
So I mean, if we're going down this rabbit hole of like if we continue going down this rabbit hole, you could maybe make up some story about how they're the remnants of the Machine Empire, or like how it's or like how or the Machine Empire were like regaining power or something like that.
The
Or like
only reason I wouldn't want to do that is we've already done the remnants of the Machine Empire once, and
yes, we did.
twice feels too much for me, even decades later.
Right,
Like they're gone, they're beat.
right,
We could just have robots as a thematic thing, but I
right,
don't think they need to be the Machine Empire.
right. I did right. Again, that's an avenue they could go down. They could
Mhm.
also, and frankly, I think they just kind of should just make it be just adapt, write them as a new original threat. Again, this is assuming that they end up adapting Kira Major, which actually actually hold on a second. I'm going to think about
If
it.
if you are gonna have it have anything to do with Machine Empire, maybe have it be robots from around the galaxy and universe who expected King Mondo to take dominance and expected that to benefit them directly in like space robot politics things, and
Right,
they're really really mad that that didn't come to pass.
right.
That could
So
be something.
Hmm.
Like I bring that up because I think you could make a story out of that.
Yes.
And that's the important part. This next season, Cosmic Fury or whatever it ends up being, it has to have a story beyond, just giving Lord Zed a big finale. If that's what
Right.
they do.
Right. I think the challenge is I want to say fi- making it feel like a fitting and a like what do you do to make it feel like a fitting anniversary or celebration, because Power Rangers has had mixed results when it comes to like its anniversary seasons. So
Oh
like
boy.
you had do people count in space like the anniversary season? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I mean, it does do a couple episode callbacks to the previous season, but that's
yeah,
less of an anniversary and more of just like giving Justin a proper send off, which
right.
was really nice.
Yes, it was.
And the episode with Adam was really cool.
Yeah. So yeah. Um. Not always had like the best luck when it comes to like its anniversaries. The fifth season Turbo at the time was widely considered the worst. Oh those were the days. Um, then I think thus far the most successful one they've had, the most like then I think I then Wild Force, which had both reinforcements from the future and Forever Red. Then but then you then there then the shall we then we go to Operation Overdrive, which shall we say was not very well received. Um,
Yeah, and like to be clear, they had a straight up anniversary two parter crossover,
yes,
which, despite its
Once a Ranger.
problems, I do have a fondness for.
Yes, I do as well. Shit, wait, shit, shit. Given what followed it, I've, I've actually come to appreciate Operation Overdrive in recent years. Like, it's still not great, but whereas before I used to just not like it, now I just find it to be okay. Like, okay, average, but I digress. So then after that, the next one was Megaforce, the Super Megaforce, and I don't think we need to elaborate on
We
how that
we
turned
have done
out.
enough. We've done
Yeah.
enough of that by now.
Um,
I, I think I think what's going to be important in regards to this next season as an anniversary season is in the past couple years, Hasbro has very much been pushing greater, references to continuity and the seasons of the much distant past. And in that regard, this anniversary season could very well be a make or break for them.
Yes.
It's their big chance to show that, hey, this is going somewhere. We could do something really cool with it.
Right. Like I don't think this is I've kind of considered Dino Fury to be like the proper beginning to the Hasbro era in the same way that I kind of consider in the same way that I kind of in the same way that Ninja Storm is the proper start of the Disney era, even though the Disney era technically began with Wild Force and the Hasbro era technically began with Beast Morphers. This is after the transition. This is when once they've gotten once they have now that they have full reins over the series, and now that they've kind of started to find their footing and find their groove with Dino Fury, I am inclined to agree that this is their true this is the I guess the showcase the moment where they where we get a good glimpse what of what the show is going to be like fully under the reins of Hasbro without any of the outsider remaining influence from Saban or Nickelodeon. What are they going to do with the show when it's fully in their hands?
And like, I'm kind of excited because there's a lot of great possibilities, but I'm also nervous because I remember the last time I was really excited for a Power Ranger season, and that was about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to work my way back up. Again, I'm not trying to dump on Megaforce all the time because it's a it's a decent show. Like, it's fine most of the time, and
Yeah.
it's not the worst thing ever to happen. And if it's the worst thing to ever happen to you personally, you're living a very charmed life. I envy
Yes.
you.
Yes. Now, okay. I guess going. I think in hindsight, I think one of the things that kind of hint what that kind of doomed Megaforce from the start was that the was how much they were hyping it up. Like, I think they announced
Oh,
this
they hyped it so much. One of
right.
the first things I heard was that they were going to film their own version of the legendary battle from Gokaiger.
Yeah.
And I remember being so excited to hear that.
Right. Right. Although I think in hindsight that ended up being a detriment. That ended up being a detriment not just to like that season, but kind of showed some of the limitations of the way that the show was operating. A way the Show the limitations of the way in which way in which the show was being promoted under Saban. Now we talked about this last week, but like I think we need to establish we. It's fair to say that now that we're operating under a new timeline with Hasbro owning the franchise. Like for about a decade or so, we've gotten used to the way to Saban's schedule. Like we have gotten used to knowing what Sentai is going to be what Sentai is going to be adapted, and then like a year late, like shortly before or after shortly before after it wraps up, we already know what Sentai is going to be adapted next. They've already started casting. They already have a name for it. We've kind of gotten used to that, and I think that was one of the things that made the lack of news from Hasbro so that much more jarring. I have a point with
Mhm.
this. Now, but so while the downside of that is that we have a lot we there are long there this is not the first time we're going to go with long periods without news from Hasbro on Power Rangers, and it's not going to be the last. That's one of the downsides. But I think the on the but I think one of the unexpected, I guess, advantages they they is that now that they're not announcing all of this in advance, they there is less of a risk of them over promising and under delivering. Now the seasons could still now the
I,
sea
I-
now hmm?
oh yeah, the seasons could still turn out poorly.
Yes.
I just want to elaborate slightly on the Megaforce part. Like, regardless of whether or not you love, hate, or have no interest in Megaforce, the fact remains that they were seriously hyping it up as an anniversary season as early as 2012, I believe.
Yes.
But no actual anniversary stuff happened until 2014.
Yes.
And that's kind of weird. You're hyping people up for something that's not even happening yet. And I
Right.
think that would be weird even in a much better show. Mind you, if it was a much better show, it'd probably be just one of those weird things we shrug at in hindsight.
Um,
But yes,
Yeah.
all right. I
Oh.
guess we can go on our final
Oh.
topic.
Not yet. Wait, not quite. Almost. We're getting towards the end of of this tangent. We swear.
All
Um. Yeah. Um. So we will. I think there will the brand will have more of a will definitely have more of a presence starting next year. As we get closer to next year, and definitely once we hit 2023. And I also suspect that we will be hearing more about this project and maybe the movie as we get closer to August, since that's when Power Morphicon starts, and we not always, but usually get news at Power Morphicon, and if not that, we'll definitely get something concrete at Toy Fair and PulseCon. So more of this to come. One last note, though, to
okay.
anybody watching this, please do not harass Simon Bennett on Twitter or Instagram about news. Like, I understand that we're all eager and excited, but please, the
It's not cool.
it's not.
It's
And
not
it,
at all.
and if I may add, in a slightly lesser note, everything we've suggested, they're just us guessing,
Of course.
speculation. Whatever idea any of you have for the next season in your head, I'm asking, don't marry yourself to it.
Yes.
Don't build something up in your head that the show will never deliver on. Because as much as we can say that Megaforce hyped itself up too much too early, some of it was always going to be on our end for expecting what was not going to happen.
Right. Like, don't it's fun to speculate and theorize, but don't let your speculation become expectation, and don't become so attached to those expectations that it becomes like a prerequisite. Like, if it does, don't don't let it get to the point where if it does not meet your exact expectations, you judge the thing for what you wanted it to be and not what it actually is.
Yeah, we're just trying to have fun with it. And
Exactly.
it's Power Rangers. Have fun with it.
Exactly. And on that note, I think we can finally
I'm gonna level
finally
with
get
you.
to
This topic lasted a lot longer than I expected it to. Holy
An
hell!
hour in.
yeah, yeah. Surprisingly we have a lot to surprisingly we end up
We
having a
have a
lot more to
lot to
talk
talk
about.
about, despite
About
the sheer lack of actual information we have.
Roxy, I was going to say it's fun. It's surprisingly we actually have more to talk about when there are things of significance to talk about.
Oh, that too.
Yeah.
Right. Like
All
if there's
right.
like a little tidbit of news, we will like it's like finding an oasis after wandering the desert.
Yeah.
We get some high quality water reviews.
Yes.
Okay. Whew. After long, now I guess it's time we finally, and now the moment we've all been waiting for. We are finally going to discuss the samurai's journey from Ninja Storm. Finally.
Oh boy, I have been looking forward to this.
Yes.
Yes.
Before we begin, I feel like some context is required for. Before we get to the actual episode, I feel like we should maybe do like discuss Ninja Storm specifically in the context of like where it fits in the franchise's history.
That
Yeah.
was
All right.
exactly my
That's
plan.
fine. Go ahead.
If you
Go
allow
ahead.
me to I'm gonna share my screen for just a second,
That's fine.
just for a visual reference for what Ninja Storm is. Let's see how this works out. What is slot? Oh, share screen. Da-da-da-da-da. Yes, get on with it.
Get like it's like that Monty Python. It's like that bit Monty Python. Get
Okay.
on with it. So I guess to fill in some of the silence, Ninja Storm was the, as we said earlier, is the 11th season of the show overall. The first season to be the first
To be
season of like
produced
the Disney,
entirely under Disney.
yes, to be produced under Disney.
Other notable things is that Disney was actually planning on ending the show after Wild Force, the 10th season, but they convinced Disney to keep it going by moving production to New Zealand, where it remains to this day.
Yes, and yes. So if you on that, I think, and I believe it was Ann Knapp Austin who convinced them to move the show, who had worked on Power Rangers dating all the way back to MMPR or ZO, and she had also worked on several Disney projects that were filmed in New Zealand, like Johnny Tsunami and Motocross.
Well, that explains a lot.
Yes, it does.
There you go.
There's a surprising amount of motocross in this season.
Oh
And
yeah,
I'm not even a motocross person, but I kind of love it.
yeah. If I were to describe, actually no, yeah, if MMPR is like a time capsule for the '90s, Ninja Storm is totally a time cap. Ninja Storm and Dino Thunder, I feel like, are perfect time capsules for like the 2000s. With the extreme sports, the sway, the surfer dude bro lingo, and while that does kind of date the show just a tad bit, I also think it adds to its charm.
Very much so. It is
Yes,
it is a nice, fun, chill season.
You
I
later,
love
they're
it.
off.
right. I could maybe which I mean it's hard to believe now, but that it kind of got a little bit of flack for being for that after like 5 years of like the after 5 years of Power Rangers being taking on a more dramatic, I don't want to say dark, but like more dramatic soap opera esque tone, starting with In Space. Wild Force was like a bit of a what's the
It
word?
very much felt different, both in its
Yes.
presentation and
Yeah.
in the writing and how characters talk to each other.
Yeah. Yes.
And I could definitely see that being jarring. In my case, and I've mentioned this before, I fell out of Power Rangers around the time of Turbo. I didn't really care about it again until Forever Red happened, which convinced me, oh, hey, I do still care about this to some degree. And then
Mhm.
Ninja Storm started airing on a channel I was watching anyway, and I remember its commercials. Three
Yes,
good, two
I
bad,
remember.
one
Oh,
ultimate evil.
I think
I remember those commercials.
And I admit that had me interested.
I especially remember. Okay, I'm going. Okay, for those of in case you didn't know, this I fully admit that I am. I'm just gonna. This was the first season of Power Rangers I had ever seen from beginning to end. Like I had caught reruns of older seasons when they aired on ABC Family, but like
Hmm.
this was my first official season, and even all these years later, it is still my personal favorite.
It is the
Um,
season that got me back into Power Rangers at the time, and
right.
I'd be hard pressed to decide what my all time favorite season is, but at any given time, Ninja Storm's a strong contender.
Right. And I think and beyond the fact that it was like complete beyond the fact that it's lighter in tone, from than other previous seasons, it also kind of acts uh like a soft reboot of the show, in that like it breaks away from a lot of the traditions, that a lot of like the tropes and the traditions that were established during the original Saban era.
There also wasn't a crossover episode with Wild Force. A lot of that probably had to do with like the logistics of being in a
Yeah,
different country.
yeah.
Also,
Like,
apparently, they like the during the period where they thought the show was ending, a lot of sets and props were apparently destroyed.
yeah.
And before they found out, no, wait, we're continuing anyway. It's just how that works.
that
Right.
sucks.
Right.
It
Although, for those
does.
of you that always wanted that, oh, sorry, it is unfortunate. Although, for those of you that always wanted that crossover and never got it, I highly recommend watching the Ninpu Sentai Hurricaneer versus Hyakuchu. I always get that wrong. Versus Gao Ranger.
I think it's Hyakju Sentai.
Hakuju, yeah, Hakuju. You know what's funny? It's funny because I find it funny that there was never a Time Ranger versus Gao Ranger movie in Sentai, but Wild Force and Time Force had a crossover in Power Rangers, and conversely, there was no crossover between Wild Force and Ninja Storm and Power Rangers, but as I mentioned, we you had the team up in Gao Ranger versus Hurricaneer. I think that works out.
Which that kind of sucks. Because I would
Oh,
actually would love to see Ninja Storm Wild Force team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and for clarity, in case it wasn't obvious, a Nimpu Sentai Hurricaneer was the Sentai that got adapted into Ninja Storm.
Yeah. And also shout out to the late Pua McGee. How do you pronounce his last name? Magavisa?
He played the Red Ranger Shane, of
Yes.
Yes.
course.
He passed away 3 years ago. Rest in peace.
And then we found out some less than savory stuff about him and his
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
The short version is sometimes it's hard to know how to feel about people. And I don't really want to get into that too deep today,
Yeah.
since
Yeah.
Shane's not the character we're going to be talking about all that much.
No, we are in no if no instead we the focus of this episode the is Cam Watanabe, who eventually becomes the Green Samurai Ranger.
Ah, I
Funnily
do believe
enough,
I do believe this is my time to give a very brief recap of what's happened up
Uh,
to this point.
All right.
yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Power Rangers Ninja Storm. The premise is fairly simple. Deep in the mountains, secret ninja academies train our future protectors. And in one of the academies, the Wind Ninja Academy, there are of three students who aren't all that great at it and have a bad habit of being targeted. When an evil ninja warlord named Lothor attacks all the ninja academies and kidnaps almost every ninja ever, the three students are saved by their tardiness, and thus they have to take up the mantle of Power Rangers to fight against Lothor. We have Shane, the ninja of air, the Red Ranger, uh, Dustin, the ninja of earth, the Yellow Ranger, and Tori, the ninja of water, the Blue Ranger. Over time, we meet a pair of seemingly evil Power Rangers, uh, Hunter, the Crimson Ranger, and Blake, the Navy Ranger, both of which are ninjas of thunder. Basically, Lothor convinced the brothers that the Wind Ninja's sensei, who is a guinea pig, by the way, I forgot to mention that, but their sensei got turned into a guinea pig during the invasion for some reason. It's been 2 decades. I still don't know why.
My guess is that they wanted. My guess is that they wanted. My guess is that they did it as like a slight allusion to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which Ninja Storm kind of feels like the Power Rangers equivalent to TMNT. But we're getting off topic again.
I mean, from a functional
Yeah,
standpoint, it's probably just so they don't have Sensei fight the monsters themselves.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Lothor convinced the Thunder Rangers that Sensei had killed their parents. There was a whole thing for a while. They found out the truth from their parents' ghosts, which was a thing. Then there was another bunch of stuff that happened, and then eventually they joined up with the Wind Rangers, and now there's the 5 of them. Now, the character we've left out in this synopsis is, as JWR said, Cam Watanabe. He is the son of the sensei, and he's basically their tech guy. He's kind of a jerk sometimes, but we've learned in an earlier episode that a lot of that is that he wanted to be a ninja himself, but his mother, who passed away when he was very young, effectively made his father promise not to ever do that.
So
And that's basically the situation we're walking into with the beginning of this episode. And the 3 episodes, broadly speaking, part 1 is about engineering a situation so bad that Cam has to go back in time and get a samurai power. Part 2 is going back in time to get the samurai power, and part 3 is Cam's first day on the job.
Yes. Broadly speaking. Now, what's interesting before we get into the actual meat and bones of the episode itself is that Cam Sentai's counterpart, Shurikenzer, never had a human alias. He was just never actually had like a human alias. It was just him in the costume.
So I've heard.
Yes.
So before we go into it, I was going to say that. And so I'm going to tell the viewers who are watching at home that don't give us that Hunter and Blake are 6 Rangers, because
they're not.
Yes, because while they come later, they were already part of the core group. So
Does
they're
anybody
not.
actually?
Does anybody?
Right.
Yeah, I've really heard people argue that.
I had to put that out there just in case the fans are wondering.
In fairness, the rules regarding "quote unquote" 6th Rangers can be really weird sometimes.
Yes,
Yeah,
But that's a different episode.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Right off the bat, I really appreciate.
But before you can, I'm going to let you continue. But I was just thinking, I think it'll be best if we tackle this one episode at a time.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
Okay,
So let's do part 1.
All right. Right off the bat, I like how the episode how the episode begins with the Rangers being tested, with the Rangers sort of being tested to seeing which one of them can slice through. I want to say it's like a brick or like a slab of concrete.
It's a really big brick.
Yeah.
I don't know
a really
what
big brick.
material it actually is, but it's a brick basically.
Yes. So each of the wind and thunder rangers takes a crack at chopping through the brick to left to unsuccessful but hilarious results. That's another thing we didn't touch on. This season, I think like if we're like on a I like for my money, I think this might be the funniest season of it, the funniest of of any Power Rangers season. Like,
It's a very strong contender for the top spot in my estimation.
yeah,
Yes.
And
like
it's
it's
the
so
characters and their performances. They kind of
yeah,
sell the vibe they're going for.
it does. Like especially during the opening when we see each of them trying and failing to top the brick. My favorite of them being like Blake, who like you see them all just trying to chop it, and then you just cut to Blake who smashes his head on it. It's like it shouldn't work on paper, but like the performance sells it.
Yes.
There you go.
And then Cam comes, and then basically they're sitting there complaining that it's something they can't reasonably be expected to do. And then Cam goes and just chops one in half. And of course, they think it. I mean, immediately you have Dustin saying, or maybe Blake saying, it's got to be a trick of some kind, or that there's a laser involved.
I think it was Dustin that made the laser. That made the being a laser.
And
So
Hunter
Cam,
said it's got to be a trick.
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
And Cam just picks up one of the broken pieces, chucks it at Hunter, lets him catch it. It's like, okay, it's real.
yeah.
And what I like about this whole setup with Cam is that there's clearly a certain amount of resentment in him. Not just
Right.
that he didn't get to be a ninja and a ranger, but because our three starting rangers weren't exactly the ideal candidates.
No, they were not. Like early on, you can kind of like early on of the first couple of episodes, you can see and audibly hear how just irritated he is by their lack of professionalism. And like at first you just think, oh I get it. I get it. He's the snarky one. He's the sarcastic genius character. But then I think this episode kind of you look at those scenes differently in hindsight when you realize that most of it stems from him, that from his resentment that like he has the skills and the talent to be and the talent to be a ranger, and yet the ones who end up getting the powers are the only got them because they were all because they only got them because they were the only people they had. Like
And there was a conversation in a previous episode, I think 9 or 10, where Cam is talking to the Blue Ranger Tori about this. So it was set up in advance, which I like.
it was, and then they hack, and then the two share another moment in the very next scene. In they have a moment like that in part one.
Which is
Well,
a beautiful shot of the sunrise, if I'm being honest. That whole scene just, it looked notably different from what I normally expect from Power Rangers, and I like it.
right, right. I think yeah, and I think the change. Well, while we've had time to get used to the get used to certain locations now that the show's been filming in New Zealand for about 20 years. It brought moving to New Zealand kind of allowed for the show to have like a new how allowed for kind of at the time allowed for a change in scenery and feel and look in a change of scenery, a change in the way the show looked and felt.
Mm-hmm.
So, but before we get to the scene of Cam venting about the fact that that the people who were least qualified for the job got the position, and how he still wants to be a ranger.
Actually, but before you say
Yeah,
that,
before that,
I think the important note about Cam is that at no point does he directly accuse any of the other Rangers of not deserving it as much as he did
oh
or
no, of
being
course not.
disqualified.
Oh no, of course not. Most of
Which
it's
is
just him.
good. It prevents him from moving into the unlikable territory.
Yeah, it never comes across as him being whiny or like petulant. It's just he constantly is more just correct. It's more just correct. It always feels like him. It always feels natural, and never makes it come across never comes across as him being whiny. It just comes across as him being a natural smartass.
Yeah.
And yeah, which I feel makes him a great foil for the rest of the Rangers in the first, I want to say, in the first half of Ninja Storm, because while they're goofing off, goofing off, goofing off and joking around, he's like without Cam, it's safe to say that they'd probably be, I want to say, dead within like the first, maybe Cam. Okay,
They wouldn't have lasted that long.
they wouldn't
And,
have.
and like even on a production level, even if Cam had never gotten his own subplot and became a ranger, I don't think the show and the dynamic of the characters would have worked quite as well without Cam to act as a contrast.
Yeah, you never would have had his professionalism. I think makes a great contrast with the lack of with I guess the lack of professionalism from the other Rangers, and that's something that would have been lost without if they had they not taken the time to develop the character the way they did.
Mhm.
Now, before we get to the scene with Tori and Cam, there is another scene. There is a scene between the other Rangers talking with the Sensei after after or when he reveals that Cam reveals the truth about Cam's mother.
I like that whole scene, honestly.
I
Yes.
did too.
Like especially the little details. First off, when Sensei prompts Dustin to speak up when he senses that Dustin doesn't really approve of the whole thing, and Dustin's just like, I see where you're coming from. That's kind of weak, man. And Sensei doesn't get mad. He appreciates Dustin's honesty.
Yeah.
What I also appreciate is that a lot of this does come from especially Hunter and Blake, whose dynamic up until this point has been defined by their relationship with their now deceased parents.
Mm-hmm.
So they do have an interesting insight into this sort of dynamic that Sensei stands to benefit from.
Yes. And more times than not, they're being new additions to the team. I don't want to say puts them at odds with the Sentai, with the Sensei, but is often like like a key dynamic in play for the first half of Ninja Storm is Hunter and Blake sort of how they kind of, I want to, let's say, how they're being the new arrivals sort of shakes up the like hmm, hmm, I'm trying to, I don't know how to describe it, but like how how them coming onto the team shakes up the dynamics and changes the way they all have to operate as a team. Like there's an episode early on where they have to where Shane and Hunter are are still getting used to working together.
Especially since
And
they're both used to being the leader.
yes, and we see that here where they're kind of where they're kind of questioning why why the sensei has sort of forbid or or been weary of Cam getting more involved in the fight when getting
I
involved in the
mean,
fight.
and it's not even in a disrespectful way.
Oh no, of
They're
course
they're
not.
they're they're challenging him, but in the kind of way that people who know and care about each other do.
Yes.
Careful.
And Sensei, to his credit, before any of this time travel stuff happened, he did start to consider that, yeah, I think I should take this under consideration and maybe rethink my position. And I do
Yes.
think that's important because it comes around to a point that I'll make later on, but just put a pin in that.
Yeah, it makes what happens later. It makes what's going to happen later on feel less abrupt. Feel less abrupt or more believable because we can see him transitioning from not allowing Cam to become a ranger to him becoming more open to the idea to him realizing that that it it's what has to be done. But anyway, I think we could kind of move on to the next. We could kind of move on to the next scene wherein the Rangers are attacked. Wherein they are wherein the Rangers are ambushed by Mara Capri, Kelzax, and the monster of the week. I think they called him Matrop
Matropolis.
Matropolis. So basically,
Metropolis.
yes. So basically, fight ensues. Rangers get overwhelmed by the bad guys, and Metropolis.
If I may,
Yes,
Matropolis's personal gimmick is that he can change his appearance, but he also comes equipped with a jar that during this fight he uses to steal the essence from each of the Rangers,
yes,
weakening them desperate. Like, even when they're not morphed, they're weak and tired.
mm-hmm.
Now they end up, Cam manages to give them a bit of a power boost that'll keep them going for a while, not unlike what Zordon did with the Green Ranger back in the day. Except this time it doesn't. It lasts for a while, but not till the end of the episode.
Yes,
They actually get the pod pretty early on, but the thing is very sturdy, and they couldn't get it to open.
yes. In the fight, yeah. So
I don't want to spend too much time talking about the fight scene, but I thought it was a really darn good fight scene
very,
with
especially
a lot of with that whole he used fog and his little change appearance trick to make
it's
the
very well
Rangers keep
shot.
to make the Rangers think they were attacking him when they were attacking each other, and Shane had to do a whole thing where he relied on his ninja training to like close his eyes and just feel him out.
Right.
Also, I'm gonna show an image of it real quick. Chrome tab. A neat thing they do in this season is that
Yes.
their visors open up and you
Yes.
see their faces in them. And it's not even that big a deal. I just always thought that was a neat touch.
Yes, it is.
And it finally hit me. It kind of reminds me of like when ninjas will pull their mask over their face or
Mm-hmm.
just pull it down to show their face, in anime and stuff. That's the vibe it gives off, and it really
Yeah.
works for me.
Yes. The Rangers overcome Metropolis illusions, blow him up by combining their weapons, and
Scroll of empowerment, descend.
descend. So as but if you've been watching the show, you know by now that it never just go that there's always another fight. There's always a sequence where the monster gets revived, grows big, and the Rangers have to defeat him again with their Megazord.
Well,
Only
it wasn't going to get any smaller.
yeah, only this time the temporary power up they receive from Cam runs out. They get they get forced out of their Megazords and then get forced to demorph. And moments before the monster can finish them off, the sensei sen- the sensei uses a scroll to temporarily freeze time and basically and basically tells Cam that he has to go back in time and retrieve a and retrieve a pa- and retrieve something that will help them save the Rangers and defeat the monster.
I will point
Thus,
out that this
oh, wait,
was largely Cam's idea, and that Sensei is hesitant but gives in because it's the only choice.
yes,
Also, time only freezes everywhere but Ninja Ops and out in space for some reason. I don't
yeah,
know how it works, and there's a point where you stop asking.
you're right. When it comes to Power Rangers and time question, and when it comes to Power Rangers and time travel, don't question it.
This is not remotely the weirdest and dumbest thing the show has done with time travel.
Oh no, not even close. So anyway, um, Cam enters the portal and travels back in time in a sequence that I've always kind of found a little bit fun. That I've always kind of found a little bit funny. Like mostly the way he just gets flung through the portal, which immediately reminded me of Samurai Jack.
Change.
Kind of fitting. So Cam travels through the portal. What ends up Why ends up outside of Ninja Ops, or at least the waterfall where Ninja Ops is located. He thinks it didn't work. Only only moments later, he is nearly trampled by a ninja riding on a horse, and the horse and part one ends with the ninja revealing himself to be Kanoi,
Cam's father, the
his
sensei.
father. Yes.
Okay, so there's a couple other notes I did have. One of which, unfortunately, I made a couple weeks ago, and for the life of me, I don't remember the details. But basically, Power Rangers in the past and in some of the more recent seasons have been very quippy, but they don't always work for me.
Um, can I cut you off just real quick, Dragon Raider? Sorry. As
Yep.
as like creepy, like Spider-Man creepy, or just creepy in general.
I guess Spider Man's a decent comparison, although they tend to like their puns a lot.
I mean, yeah, they do that all. They do that all. They always do that, but they especially, but they, I think that kind of ramped up starting here. Like everybody this season's basically just Spider-Man when it comes to quips.
But I also
Yeah.
feel like they work a lot better in this season than in some
They
others.
do. They feel. I
And
think.
I
They,
think I think a lot of it, I don't even remember what the ice cream headache line was, but it's just that not all the quips are supposed to be funny, and sometimes the humor is just the Rangers, quipping at each other and over how bad their quips are.
Uh,
It
all right.
and I can see that being annoying to some people, but to me, it reads a lot better than like I guess Samurai or Megaforce, where they're throwing out puns a lot and no one seems to have any self awareness.
All
it
right.
it works here. It works here because of. But I think it's the delivery of the lines and the fact that they don't and the fact that that the delivery of the lines, the self-aware tone of the season, and the fact that they know when to pull back.
Yeah, they know when to pull back. That basically sums up the show in a nutshell. This season, I mean.
Right. So, part
Uh,
two be. Oh wait.
if I may, I did have one more point. Not all these notes need to
Sure.
be referenced, but one is a excellent line from the end of the episode before Cam goes through the portal in the past, and his father, Sensei Kanoi, says to him, "You have your mother's courageous heart and your father's stubborn head." And I just think there's a lot of that's just a really good line, both of what you can read into it and more and what it's supposed to mean to his son that he's saying it to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have too much more to elaborate
Yeah.
on that point. I just
Yeah.
thought it
It's
was
a
a really good line.
yeah. There are a lot of those in in these episodes. So part two begins with with the younger version of Kanoi escorting Camp to the Wind Ninja Academy, where he's introduced to his um uh, where he's introduced to his future mother. I think her name is Miwa.
Hold on, I have it.
Wait a minute.
Miko.
Where he's introduced to Miko, and Miko who introduces the samurai amulet, the source of this, which is the source of power that Cam went in time to get back in the first place.
Okay. So let me set the scene. The teacher, I'm not going to call him sensei because then we'll just get confused who I'm talking about. But the teacher, Cam tells him, "Hey, I'm here to try and learn ninjutsu and stuff." And the teacher basically goes, "Put a training uniform on him. We'll learn soon enough if he's meant to be here or not." And then we go to another new recruit who has a exhibition match against Kanoi. And the recruit we find out at the end is Miko. We'll get back to that. And what I like about the choreography here is that I was able to tell a decided difference between what the two combatants. I'm not always that good at this sort of thing, but while Kanoi is doing a bunch of jumping, flipping, rolling around, trying to move in and for the kill, Miko is using more grounded and defensive stances and using swift Aiken techniques to counter all of Kanoi's movements. And I just like it if you're gonna say no, she's not a ninja, she's a samurai. I like that they had the choreography actually represent that.
Yeah, it's a nice detail because it's a nice detail even before we find out that she has the samurai amulet. Like we see right off the bat that she has a different fighting style than Kanoi or any of the other Win ninjas, which clues us into the fact that which kind of clues us into the fact that she is which kind of clues us into what she actually is and what she actually represents for Cam's mission in the past.
Mm-hmm. And during this fight, the guy next to Cam is revealed to be Kanoi's brother Kia, who kind of leans over and says, "Yeah, Kanoi's good, but he's not unbeatable." And of course, Cam is surprised by this because, as far as he knows, he doesn't have an uncle.
More on that later.
But the other detail that comes from this fight is when Miko takes off her mask and shows who she is. Apparently, there's been a no girls allowed tradition that they're in the middle of changing. And I note that the only person who's openly upset about this is Kanoi himself. Even Kia speaks in favor of the idea of Miko being here, although it's possible he was only doing that to rub salt in Kanoi's pride.
Right. I'd like to believe that it's both a mix of him wanting to do away with the traditions of the antiquated traditions of the Wind Ninja Academy, and also because he just wanted to be contrary. It just seems like a sibling thing to do, to be contrarian for the sake of contrarian and take the opposite side of your sibling in a fight or a discussion.
My general point is, okay, admittedly, this doesn't make Kanoi look super great, but we can assume they work things out in the future, because we do know, because Sensei Kanoi has never really shown a problem with Tori.
Yeah.
But the main point I want to come down here is, without getting into too serious of topics, sexism is kind of a heavy issue. I just like that that they didn't really make it a whole thing, that they really do just focus in on it being this one jerk this time. I know that's not how it works in real life, but we really didn't have any room in this episode for a sexism plot.
Right.
And I still think it comes across better than how it was done in SVD, but that's for another day.
Right. It comes across less as overt sexism and more just him being used to tradition.
Plus, just being a whiny boy because he got his butt whooped.
Right. Plus, yeah. He's young. He's young. He's young. He's brash. He doesn't like. He does. He's not. He's not open. He's young. He's brash. And in contrast to Kia, who frequently shows willing to try to do things different. Kanoi is just Kanoi. We established him as like somebody who's just very stubborn and set in his ways.
I'm very I noticed that Kanoi is an air ninja. And I
Yes.
found myself wondering, are there any like sort of parallels or contrasts that we should make note of between him and Shane? I wasn't really able to come up with anything, but I wanted to float it past you guys.
I kind of did in that both of them at the start are very I guess are kind of both of when we see Kanoi we kind of establish him as someone who's very gung ho, someone who wants to do things his way, even if that kind of puts him at odds with the other people in his camp.
Hmm. And Shane had that whole episode where he was having trouble working with the other Rangers, and he
Yes.
had to learn that being a leader and being part of a team is it takes more than just having confidence in your own abilities and expecting everyone else to keep up.
Yes. Yeah, it definitely makes for it makes for a nice if kind of understated parallel.
There was only so much time after all. Shane's
Right.
barely even in this episode.
Right. Well, in part two he's
In
barely
part
in it.
two.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we're ready to move on to like the next scene.
Yeah, there's a bit where Cam. Okay, it feels weird saying he hits it off with Miko, but you know what I mean.
He introduces himself to Miko. He gets to know her better. Let's put it that way. Like, yeah. So Cam introduces himself to Miko, who as the conversation goes on, reveals a pendant around her neck called the Samurai Amulet.
Which is this green little orb thing.
This will come into play later. Anyways, she tells Cam about how the amulet has has secret powers and will I think the way she puts it is that it will call upon the person who is destined to wield it.
It's also shoot. Did you say it was an ancient family heirloom?
Yeah, no. Oh no, I did not. Yeah, no, I did not. It turned yes.
So it's clearly very important to her.
Yes. So later on, there was a sequence in which Cam spots a hooded student trying to sneaking into Miko's tent to try to steal the amulet. Cam tries to stop.
Or hold on, it plays out a little differently. Also, before Cam and Miko start talking, Kia, Kanoi's brother, goes up to her and is very insistent that he show him her amulet, and his eyes go all creepy for a second.
Yeah.
Then what happens later is that Cam doesn't actually see the masked figure in a recruit uniform sneaking into the tent. The guy almost manages to get out, but steps on something, knocks something over, gets Miko's attention before booking it.
Mm-hmm.
And then following them that way, the other ninjas run into Cam, and they assume that he's the one who stole the amulet.
Yes.
Despite not having the amulet on him. But to the credit of Kanoi, who's been a whiny boy this entire time, he does his diligence. He looks into it, when Cam says there was someone else, and goes off to investigate on his own.
Yes, and
We
we
didn't
see
have we didn't have too much time to focus in on that, but you know, he's an arrogant jerk, but he's also a diligent arrogant jerk.
yes. Um, so the ninjas take Cam to I'll just you know what I'll just call to the I don't want to call him the sensei, but
The teacher.
the wait yeah to the teacher to put him on trial, and before they can banish him or punish him, Kanoi interrupts the proceedings with the masked assailant who reveals himself to be Kia.
So Kia's an Earth ninja. Is there anything to make note of regarding him and Dustin?
I don't know about making
Yeah,
regarding
yeah.
with him and
I, I,
Dustin.
I don't know either,
Well,
but I
well,
thought I should bring it up.
I don't know about connection with him and Dustin. Although, but there is him being an Earthwind ninja is of note for reasons that I can't talk about just yet.
Okay. I look forward to that.
So after being unmasked, Kia confesses to being thief, and before the other Wind ninjas can do anything to punish him, he basically reveals that he's been practicing the ninja equivalent of dark magic, and starts like throwing these Hadoukens at everybody. It's
And basically, he and Cam end up in like a bubble on the stage, where they're forced to fight one on one because Kia's just kind of a show off like that.
right.
So they have a fight scene, and it's a pretty good fight scene. But while Cam's keeping up, ultimately Kia's dark magic does get the better of him, and he very nearly wins. But suddenly, the samurai amulet responds to Cam and blasts Kia backwards,
Yeah.
allowing the other ninjas to subdue him.
Yes. And so after he's subdued and put on trial, he is subsequently banished from the Wind Ninja Academy. Kia, ever the smug bastard, basically says that he has no use for the Wind Ninja Academy and their archaic ways. That he will no longer go by the name of Kia Watanabe, but will now assume the identity of the evil galactic despot Lothor.
And of course, Cam tries to convince. Of course, you kind of see him piecing it together before he says the name, and then Cam's like immediately, no.
Right.
But the teacher, okay, the teacher hasn't made the best impression because there was not any irrefutable evidence that Cam had done anything wrong. What are you people doing? But he is correct that they can't really punish Kia based on a future that they don't know about.
Right.
Like, yeah, Cam knows, the audience knows. No one else there has any way of knowing that's about to happen, and Cam has no way of proving anything he could have said anyway.
Right.
So he gets banished down to Kia gets banished down to space.
Right.
And
Now-
the fact that
Yes.
What were you gonna say?
I was going to
Dante?
say, and the fact that the sensei is played by James Gaywin, the guy who went on to do Cell Tracks
Yeah.
and Dynafund.
Huh. I did not know that.
Yeah, he's been around. Yeah, he's been around for a while.
Cool.
Now, remember when I said that there was some significance behind Kia being a Wind Ranger that I couldn't really talk up that I didn't feel comfortable talking about until a later point?
Yeah.
That later point is now. So, knowing that it's fun. Like, knowing that he was a Earth Wind ninja, kind of paints his plan in a different light, and gives us some perspective with his
The Abyss.
the Abyss.
I had
Earth,
never thought of
ground. Yeah.
that. Yeah, short version for the audience, the finale involves something called an abyss of evil. We're not
Yeah,
going to spend a lot of time on that, but yeah, wow, dang, that's a good
yeah.
point, JWR.
Holy crap.
And also kind of explains how he was possibly able to get out. Not really a spoiler. Not really a
Yeah,
spoiler. He comes
he
back in
gets
Dino
out
Thunder.
in Dino, and he's been in a jar for the past what 18 years now.
Right. I always assumed that he died after Haley blew up Mesogog's lab.
I mean, he might have, but
He
you
might
know how
have.
these shows work. As long
Yeah.
as you never see the body, there's always the chance that they could come back alive somehow. We've seen
Right.
dumber.
Right. Speaking of coming back, before Cam can argue that they have to stop Key from becoming Lothor, the amulet starts glowing, and Miko tells him that it means that the amulet
Um,
has
you you meant to say
Yeah,
the scroll was
the
glowing.
scroll. The
yeah.
scroll.
The scroll of time opens back up. Cam's been on a time limit this whole time. It hasn't been a huge
Yes.
deal, but the scroll's like, "Yep, time's up. Go back to the portal now, or you're stuck here." And
Yeah.
Miko, being remarkably understanding about an ancient family heirloom, gives this thing to its destined holder, who is as far as she knows, a stranger she met today. Although
Right.
something about her acting, you have there's enough left unsaid that you have to wonder how much Miko has put together in her head, and it's
Well,
remarkably effective.
right. Well, I think the fact that she saw that she saw Cam using the amulet, or like the amulet protecting him from Kia, that kind of clued her into the fact that this person, who may or may not be related to me, is worthy of using it.
Right. I just meant that like even apart from that, there are some unspoken implications in her performance, and they're never elaborated on. But I think it's
Yeah.
one of those that any possible answer is a good answer.
Right. So we cut back to present day before the Rangers. Oh, I should mention, like while Cam was off trying to find the amulet, the Rangers were teleported back into Ninja Ops. When the time limit runs out, they are teleported back to the moment before Metropolis was about to destroy them.
Time
But before
traveling.
he can, yes,
I'm
but
sorry,
before
these rules are just all over the place, and I love it.
they are. But before that can happen, somebody comes in to save them
In
again.
a giant helicopter machine, the Samurai Star Chopper.
Yeah, that's
And,
badass.
and then he just kind of leans out the side window saying, "Hey, Rangers, I'm the Green Samurai Ranger. I'm here to help." And Lothor is like, "Another Ranger.
Oh,
When
wait,
will
wait,
they
wait,
run
wait,
out of
wait, wait.
colors?"
Oh, wait, no. So yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll get to that. So as Dragon Mater said, wait. The green Samurai Ranger reveals himself, takes on Metropolis in the Samurai Star Chopper, and kills him in the. I don't know
Samurai.
why, but I've always just found the way in the. I think it's called the bee stinger.
Oh
Bee
yeah,
spinner.
The
Bee
bee
yeah.
spinner.
spinner. The bee spinner.
The Samurai Star Chopper transforms into a Megazord because, of course, it does, and its signature weapon is like a bee that spins that's on a string, and he just kind of flails the bee at his enemy. And Power Rangers is wonderful.
And they explode, which causes them to explode.
It causes them to explode, as
So,
bees do.
of course, so after this new Ranger defeats the monster. Wait, so he defeats Metropolis. To which Lothor hilariously remarks, "Another one. When will they run out of colors?" Can somebody answer me that?
Ed Grant McFarlane as Lothor.
He plays it.
Just
He's great.
So wonderful.
I've always kind of described Lothor as like a bet a male version of Divatox, but executed better.
I would
That
agree
makes
with
sense.
that.
Yeah,
And
like
I think there's a couple reasons to it. One, the season seems built around it better than Divatox was with Turbo.
yes,
Two, I think a lot of it is just his stage presence. He
yes,
can say goofy stuff, but then he can immediately snap to intimidating and just frighten off his nieces,
right,
and it's believable. By the
right.
way, Lothar has a pair of nieces, Mara and Capri. I have no idea where they come from. I don't know if they're actually related to Cam at all. It's never elaborated on.
Right, or I got, or I, nor is it elaborated on who, nor is it elaborated on who, on
Who
exact,
their
on
who are
who,
their
on who their,
parents?
who their parents are, who Lothar had to marry, who Lothar had to marry, then to wind up with two nieces. Not explained, not touched upon, not that it needs to be. They're
It,
basically like,
they're the comic relief villains
yeah, they're
of the
basically the bulk and skull of Ninja Storm.
or perhaps a Squad and Babu would be a better comparison.
Yeah, perhaps so.
And I
Anyways,
think, and another reason, and I've said this in the past in the server, they have a Zergane.
yes,
And Zergane, while he has some individual moments of silliness, he's largely the serious one who's trying to keep things on track. He's the
yes,
team's equivalent of Cam in a way.
yes,
And the and first off, it makes everything funnier because you need the serious guy to contrast the comedic people.
yes.
And honestly, I just like his the mask, his appearance. He pulls swords out of his shoulders. He just he's super loyal to his boss, but he's also the constantly beleaguered, put upon guy who you almost feel sorry for sometimes.
Right, especially with the fact that that I think it's which I think that he's super loyal to Lothar, and yet he's constantly being asked to do all this menial stuff. Like like I think like there's a moment in Return of Thunder where he's like where he's like first where he's basically stuck being the repairman after this and after who has to fix the thermostat. Like first it's too hot, now it's too cold. Oh, it's great.
They knew how to work with what they had.
They did. Like I think a lot of why the humor lands so well in this storm is because it's a season that is fully sure of what it wants to do and how it wants to do it.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it.
Yeah. Anyways, Cam like no god. I mean catch out the bag. The Green Ranger defeats the monster, introduces himself to the other Rangers who are still completely just still trying to process this all. Like there's one where Cam just where Hunter's like where Blix is like, you guys ever said anything about a green one? And then Hunter's like, yeah, way to hold down on us. Then then to I think it's Dustin who's like, am I hallucinating, or is there a green Power Ranger in front of us?
Yes, that's what.
You're not hallucinating, Dustin.
And then Dustin says, "How you know my name?"
Why
And you
was
get this shot of Tori just with her, she just smiles because
she knows?
And if I may go on a very slightly personal tangent, I remember watching this episode when it came out, and my dad was in the room and he was watching it with me because he was the kind of person who would pay attention to what his kids were up to.
Right.
And he even said during that scene, she knows. She knows.
Yeah.
And that's just a memory I'm very fond of.
Right. Why would to which the rain Dustin asks how the Green Ranger knows his name, to which he responds, why wouldn't I know your name? And part two ends with the Green Ranger revealing himself to be none other than Cam. Now, although one thing that I want to assume that it's just because they were tired and they just didn't have the energy to like pay attention, but I just kind of find it kind of funny how none of them seemed to recognize Cam's voice until he just like nobody outside of Tori seemed to recognize Cam's voice or knew that it was Cam until he just revealed himself.
Yeah, it's one of those things you just kind of have to accept. But in
Right.
fairness, they did have a lot going on at that moment.
Right.
It had been a day.
Yeah. So, anything else you want to touch on this before we move to part three?
Couple things.
Go ahead.
One is a minor observation. Watching Kia and his attitude, he has a sort of snarky behavior to him that I'm like, yeah, this guy's gonna become Lothar one day. I can see.
Yeah.
The other one is actually unpinning that thing I said earlier, where Sensei Kanoi starts to acknowledge that he could stand to rethink his position on Cam being a ninja. And I think it speaks to one of the strengths of the episode, the three-parter as a whole, because if you just look at the basic outline, it almost might feel like a cop out. And let me explain what I mean by that. Basically, Cam has a Cam's dad promised that he'll never become a ninja, and instead of dealing with that, Cam just circumvents it and becomes a samurai. That's what it could have come across as, but it doesn't. One, because before any of this happened, like I've said several times now, Sensei Kanoi had begun to rethink his position, and a lot of it is carried by Cam and Miko in this episode and their chemistry and the odd. It's been a couple weeks already. Some of the dialogue's already getting blank in my head, but there's a sort of acceptance that Miko shows that she does respect Cam for from what she's seen of him, and the Samurai Star amulet being a family heirloom. Even if she doesn't know that he's her son from the future, there's a sort of like that it's being given to him as a legacy from his mother.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of implies that that old block, that old his mom didn't want him to be a ninja, isn't really a factor anymore.
No.
That's past.
Yeah.
It could have been really trite, but instead it was a really well told and touching story. And and honestly, Samurai's Journey Part 2 is easily one of the high point episodes of the entire season.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Now
So,
let's go to part 3 in the final one.
so part three picks up immediately where part two left off. Cameras reveal themselves to the other Rangers, and he gathers them around and he basically gathers them up to group to get them back to Ninja Ops. And
Because Lothar shows up.
oh yeah,
Guy's suddenly mad, and he's suddenly in the sky shooting ninja beams at them. And
I
Laura
love
and Capri show up, and you
right.
got Kel's axe, and it's just a big chaotic scene. And yeah, Cam's a ranger now, but you still have 5 people who can barely fight. That's a runaway situation if I've ever seen one.
Right.
And it really carries the momentum from the previous episode.
Right. Yeah. I think they made the right choice with. I think they made the right choice with like picking up immediately where the last part left off because it retains the momentum. On a quick side note, there are 2 exchanges in this sequence. A couple of notes I have for the scene. There are two lines of dialogue that will always stick out. That will always stick out to me. Like the first. well, I guess this one is less of a line and more of a moment, but it's the moment where Dustin's like, "I'll just wait for a cab or a bus. I've worked," and then out of nowhere you hear a local going, "Run, fool!" It's it's effective for like the audience. It's like, oh, it's because like, oh shit, Lorthor's getting involved. Now we got to pound.
Well, like for a second, it feels like things are winding down, and suddenly, whoop! There's Lothar.
And then there's the line. I think it's Blake who says something along the lines of, "Obviously, he didn't get enough love as a child," which is which is funny, which is a kind of which a that's just hilarious. That the line itself is hilarious, but kind of poignant when you consider what we just saw in the previous episode.
And how much this whole three-parter has been around about parental love and all that.
Right. So then I think in a so then like I kind of feel like there's okay. It's not the first time that we've had a shot or scene of the Rangers of the Rangers running away while the bad guys are blasting at them. But this moment I feel almost feels like a throwback to the scene in Prelude to a Storm where Shane, Dustin and Tori find Cam underneath the rubble, and then they have to run away. Then they have to run away while while getting shot at by Lothor's ship.
Hmm, I hadn't thought of that. Good observation.
Also, like I on top of keeping up the momentum from the last episode. There's something just I I think would give the chase scene, I guess, a little bit of like what's the word of like I guess gravity or like weight is that he's like right after they take care of one threat, he's coming at them full force. Like he's not just doing it for intimidation or show. He's actively trying. He's gunning. I think it was a wise decision to show him being to have Lothor, I guess, kind of to have Lothor be proactive in trying to hunt down the Rangers.
Plus, since we just saw his origin story, now, or at least part of it, now it was a really good time to reemphasize that, yeah, Lothor is actually really dangerous when he wants to be.
Yes. So the chase carries on until the Rangers are cornered by Lothor, Mara, Capri, and Kelzax. And before it and
I don't think we ever said. Kelzax are the foot soldiers for the season.
yes,
The equivalent of the putty patrollers. Okay.
yes.
Please continue.
So they're cornered by Lothor and his goons, and just before and okay, first we have like a brief exchange where Lothor refers to Cam as his nephew, where Lothor and Cam refer to each other as uncle and nephew, and
Which
just
actually, which raised a question to me. Had Cam and Lothor ever been in the same scene prior to this?
I don't think they. I don't think so. Well,
And
no, I
if
don't.
not, that's a nice touch.
I don't think so. I think this might be the first time in which we see them together in the same on when they're on screen together, which yeah, which kind of I guess adds to like the yeah, it kind of makes the scene a little more special and I guess significant since moments after Cam finds out that he's related to the bad guy, they finally meet. But anyway, moments before it looks like they're pretty much done for, Sensei teleports them back to Ninja Ops, to which to which to which I think Blake says, "Want to warn want to warn us next time so that we can have a chance to work on our landing." To which Sensei replies, "Your appreciation is noted."
That's
Like I've said it before, but it bears repeating. The humor this season is just so on point.
Okay, I do want to take just a moment to explain the teleportation, because it's not like how it was in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers where they could just teleport willy-nilly wherever. Basically, there's a computer program in Ninja Ops that seems to be able to teleport things to Ninja Ops, but to my knowledge, not from.
Yes.
And the reason why it took so long for Sensei to run the program is Cam usually does it, and Sensei's a guinea pig trying to work out the computer. You know how it goes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't come off as the whole sequence doesn't come off as overly contrived drama.
It's a
You know?
believable Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah.
So, there's so the so the so the so the so 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 Shane Shane laments about how they could have possibly taken on Lothor if they had their powers, which are still in the sphere. Sensei reveals that the sphere holds the power of the five rangers, but Dustin proposes that they could open the sphere by using the power of six rangers.
I just love how it's Dustin who states the most obvious solution. It's like
Yeah,
we have to come up with a power that's greater than five rangers in order to open the sphere. How about six rangers? It's just such a Dustin thing to say.
right. Especially since he's often considered like, okay, if I could go back with the Ninja Turtles metaphor, he's basically the Michelangelo of the team, like the guy that everybody is
Yeah.
like the guy who's always the guy who's cracking the jokes, the guy who's like you like the least usually the least focus of the Rangers. So like to have him be the one who comes up with the solution, it's a nice touch.
So sometimes you just need the straightforward, obvious suggestion.
Yeah.
And of course, it works. The sphere's opened, all the Rangers have their powers back. And I do believe there's a bit of a conversation between the Rangers and Sensei regarding Lothor. And it's like, they ask him why he never told them about Lothor being his brother. And Sensei is just like, the man who I knew as Kia Watanabe died that day to me, and I consider Lothor to be a completely different person.
Yes.
And
also
Cam's like, well, yeah, but don't you think I had a right to know? To which Sensei says, perhaps, but would this have really changed anything? Would you have fought him any less diligently? And I think that's mostly fair.
Right.
Yeah, very fair.
Like I can kind of understand why people I can kind of understand the critique of I can understand and agree with the critique that more wasn't that they didn't touch upon that moment more, that it didn't have like more emotional impact. And while although I think it would have been a little bit at odds with the tone and feel of Ninja Storm, at least like if they were trying if they had been trying to continue the more mature soap opera style tone of like Wild Force, I could see this moment I could see this leading to like this big dramatic confrontation between the sensei and Cam and possibly Lothar at the end. But I think when you consider in the context of what the season is trying to go for, I think it's for the best that they didn't really touch upon it that much.
Plus, to bring up a point we've established, but Cam and Lothar hadn't really spoken up until this episode. Apart from the previous episode where Cam found out he had an uncle, there was no existing character dynamic between Cam and Lothar. So this doesn't feel like one of those. So like the revelation doesn't come off like a big changes everything kind of moment it did like in Wild Force when we found out that Master Org was actually the guy responsible for killing Cole's parents.
Right. But
like if there was a stronger thing there with Cam and Lothar leading up to that, they probably have to deal with it.
Yeah.
But for what it is and what they're doing, it works really well.
Right. It would have felt unearned if they tried to go in a more dramatic direction with that twist, because up until then their only interaction with each other was in the first episode, Prelude to a Storm, when Lothar and his forces invaded the Wind Ninja Academy. Yeah, they had nothing. They had nothing. They had they they had no awareness of each other's they had no awareness of each other's presence, and had they tried to go on a more had they tried to do something super dramatic with this twist, it would have felt a little unearned.
Yeah, I think it would be unearned. A build up counts just as much as payoff when it comes to these sorts of things.
Right. So, anyways, we cut back to Lothor on the spaceship, who immediately after who is, I want to say, not overly thrilled about the Rangers once again getting away from him. So he devises a plan to draw the Rangers out by summoning five or six monsters, each one monster for each Ranger, leaving leaving Cam to face off against the most powerful of the bunch.
And the only one I remember, some bug guy. Well, I almost called him Stingwinger, but no, that's a different thing entirely.
Right.
Whatever. I'm gonna call him Bug Guy because I don't care.
I don't think.
I'm gonna level with you. Most of this episode is fight scenes,
Yeah.
and not all the fight scenes. To be clear, the choreography is good. There's some stuff where, Lothor starts making the monsters grow. He can only grow one monster at a time because he didn't spring for the memory upgrade for his
Memory upgrade.
Cam.
uh,
We didn't spring for the sir. We didn't spring for the memory upgrade
uh,
because that's the kind of show we have. And and we have the Wind Rangers in their Megazords fighting the giant monster, while we got the Thunder Rangers going around, picking off the little guys. And it's a good enough, and it's a good set of action scenes. It's just a lot of them are only action scenes. The important part. Wait, did you go somewhere, JWR? I'll. The important part is when Cam is fighting the bug guy, he gets backed into a corner. The Kelzacks hold him down, and the bug guy sticks his little drink. What do you call the front end of a bug? Basically,
Hibiscus.
Hibiscus.
yes.
And effectively poisons Cam with venom that'll turn him into a bug guy. And then Cam's back in Ninjas for a while. He's slowly turning into a bug. And there's a nice scene with him and Sensei where Cam's starting to wonder if it was, his first fight, and he gets turned into a bug creature. And he's starting to feel down. And Sensei, he lifts his spirit, says, I know it won't be your last. You're going to beat this, all that. And basically, they have to fight the monster at the end to get into. The monster's the only thing that can reverse the process. So Cam grabs this hibiscus thing, shoves it in his own chest, and somehow makes the monster drink out the poison. And then he goes super samurai mode, where he takes off his vest and spins his helmet around. And it's all silly, but he just kicks all sorts of butt there. And the Megazords, and at the end, his Samurai Star Chopper combines onto the Wind Megazord by the Ninja Storm Megazord. I'm sorry, by taking the place of Dolphin Arm, and then just uses its big turbines to shoot powerful tornadoes at the enemy that causes it to explode.
Right. Oh, I don't know if we touched upon this, but there's a subplot where, well, I wouldn't even call it a subplot, but Lothor basically doesn't want Mara and Capri to do with it to screw up his plan like they usually do, and he basically asks them to report the news, but they take that a little too literally and
they set it up like a whole news section, a news segment,
right?
and it was. God, I love this show sometimes.
Right, right. And then wait, to which after Cam and the Rangers defeat the bug monster, Mark, I think it's Capri who asks him, who is still just as a reporter, asks him, how does it feel? How do you feel about your humiliating defeat at the hands of the new upstart Green Ranger? to which to which Lothar says nothing and just sends her to, like, traps her inside the TV.
Damn.
Again, that's what makes Lothar work over Diva Talks. He can just
Yeah.
do that. Like Diva
Right.
Talks did have her moment. I'm pretty sure she stuck Elgar outside the sub with sharks at one point. That was good.
Right.
But Lothar did it more consistently.
Right.
And at the end of the episode, we have a nice little scene where the Rangers welcome Cam into their ranks by giving him his own ninja uniform, complete with his color and symbol.
It's
Now
great.
that was
It's a great
that.
way to. It's the perfect way to bookend the episode.
It
Heck
is.
yeah. The
And like,
uniform was cool.
I'm gonna level with you. I enjoyed part 3, but it's so action heavy that there's really not nearly as much to talk about this time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think. Yeah. It kind of feels like. Well, I don't want to. It almost kind of. I have a similar thing. I feel it's similar to how I feel about the Return of Thunder, the previous multi-part episode. Like, I almost kind of feel like you could have ended it at part 3, because as much as, because while I enjoy part 4, it more or less just feels like an epilogue.
And like, I do basically get that you want to show the new Ranger working together as a unit and not just, I guess, with the Thunder Rangers not being off on their own again. And you get new Megazord combinations. There is a build up and payoff, but also it's, and I almost hate to say this, they're definitely not the strongest part of their respective stories.
Yeah, no. It's yeah, like, I think Return of Thunder Part 4 and The Samurai's Journey Part 3 respectively, they're like, they feel more like comic book annuals rather than like the main story of the main arc of the comic itself. Like a nice adventure after the story and before the next arc.
Yeah. But still, like you said, it is the scene at the end is a nice bookends for how the part 1 began.
Right.
And that's good enough.
Right.
I didn't have, it's not like I had a bad time with the episode.
The last shot of the episode, I think, is a great, perfect bookend. So they're welcoming him, they give him the uniform, and then we close the episode, the episode on a shot of the picture of on like a shot of the picture thing with his family, with Cam and his parents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great way to close it out.
Heck yeah. That's why
it's easy to see why this 3-parter has such a good reputation among the franchise.
Yes.
Like, I know Ninja Storm isn't everyone's cup of tea or everyone's favorite season, but I feel like this 3-parter tends to be, I don't want to say the exception, but something people generally like, even if they're not a huge fan of the series.
Yeah, it's tied between both this and I want to say Thunder Strangers seems to be the I don't want to say like the fan favorite, but like the go to when people discuss. Actually, no, I think that those 2 episodes are the ones that end up in most people's that end up getting mentioned in conversations when talking about greatest of when it comes to Power Rangers. Though I'd also personally I personally also think Return of Thunder is worth mentioning, since I slightly prefer it over Thunder Strangers, just by a hair. Give me one quick second. Yes. Yeah, sure. Sorry about that.
It's all right. Oh, wow. I think we covered most of everything here.
Yeah,
I do believe I've said everything I wanted to say.
yeah.
All right. Before we end it out, I'll give up my thoughts on this three-parter. Samurai's Journey, no question, it was freaking great. I truly love seeing Cam as the Green Ranger. It's just perfect in any way. I mean, in every sense of the word. It really gives you like what does it what does it give you like a vibe of some sort. Yeah, well, it actually gives me quantum leap vibes because of the time travel and such.
Hmm.
But but I doubt that highly. But anyway, yeah, love this three-parter. Can't can't beat it. Well, besides Forever Red, you can't beat Forever Red. Best team
Well,
up to.
well. I mean, I don't. Is it really fair to compare the intro? Is wouldn't something like the Lone Wolf or Quantum Seek or Quantum Quest be a more apt comparison since those are episodes that introduce their six rangers rather than the team of episodes? Like I almost just feel like you have to when you're comparing different episodes from different seasons, you have to compare them like relative to what they're dealing with, like finales, pilots, the introductions of the Sixth Ranger. Although in that regard, I still think that White Thunder does it the best. But we'll that's another conversation for another day.
You know, I did think of one last detail I didn't quite mention as strongly as I wanted to. It's a relatively small one, so I won't belabor the point. But one thing Ninja Storm does with Cam and their Sixth Ranger that hadn't really been done like this before and wasn't often done again was that they didn't introduce a new character to be the Sixth Ranger or bring someone back out of nowhere like Jason, but instead, Cam was an established part of the cast since the first episode. He's
Right,
been there. He's able
right,
to establish himself and grow as a character first and then become a ranger. And
right.
it was kind of exciting in that way.
Right. Yeah. They now. I want to very slightly push back on that because we did meet Eric in Time Force before he became the Quantum. Well, kind of. I think that was the episode. That was the episode before Quantum Quest. Worlds Apart was
Like,
before Quantum Quest, I think.
like,
But
like he was introduced before that, but like
but
you
Cam
said,
had been there. But Cam was there from the get go. That's the thing.
he was a regular part of the cast.
Yes.
He's like, I'm trying to think of a good comparison point, but
What are you trying to what are you trying to compare him to? Like,
like I'm trying to think of another character in a similar position becoming a ranger.
hmm.
And
You know what it's like. If I had to compare it to anything, it's kind of. I want to say it's kind of like it is kind of hard. It is kind of hard, I guess. Because like in every other instance, the Sixth Ranger had either been introduced in that episode or the episode prior, so we didn't really have as much time to get to know them. But I'm trying to maybe Claire, maybe Kendall and Dino Charge, but even then we rarely saw we she. But I don't know. I don't even know about that. Um,
I think Kendall is a different dynamic since she was
yeah,
much more. Since instead of being the tech guy, she had a position of authority over the Rangers,
yeah,
which had been done before, but she did bring her own unique spin on it.
right.
Anyway, I think we have been going on for quite a while now.
Yeah,
Yes, we have. Well, yeah, I guess that's gonna be it.
I
Oh,
told you guys it would take a while on the
yeah.
Samurai's journey, didn't I?
Yes.
Yo, you did. You did. This was a free parter, so you did say that. So anyway, yep, that's gonna be it for this episode of the Power Rangers podcast. If you guys like this episode, please give it a like, comment on it, and subscribe, and turn on the bell icon to get notified every time I upload a new video. When I go live. Ooh, guys, what's on the agenda for next
We don't
week's
know.
episode of the podcast here?
Next weekend happens to be the 4th of July. Happens to be the 4th of July. So why not celebrate the occasion by discussing the first American exclusive Ranger, being the Titanium Ranger from arguably the most American season of the show, Lightspeed Rescue.
The
Yeah,
character
there
as
you
a
go.
whole or his introduction episodes?
His introduction episodes.
Alrighty, that sounds fun.
Sounds
We'll work
indeed.
out the details on that in a bit. But
Yes.
yeah,
Yes,
that sounds good to you, Dante?
that sounds fine to me. And ladies and gentlemen, until we see y'all again next time, may the power protect you.
Always.
All right, goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.